how rapidly a field that is not noted for its nimbleness has adapted to a new hybrid reality. Like, what do you see happening right now that gives you hope for what museums may start looking like post-pandemic? That's kind of a loaded question, and I apologize in advance for it.
No, that's quite all right. It's totally in the futurist ballpark. I think what gives me hope is this, as with any disruption, having an upside, is it jolted people out of their zone of complacency. And it made people naturally engage in an exercise that futurists encourage people to do anyway, which is to question assumptions. And one of the exercises I do with people in workshops is we group generate a list of 100 things, 100 statements that are true about museums, and then we write the opposite and say, whoa, wait a minute, blow your mind. What would it take to have, museums are nonprofits to museums are not nonprofits? And I think that the pandemic essentially was a living laboratory for that.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the assumptions that museums were having to question were not unique to museums. They're things that all businesses and society were going through. So, for example, for over a decade, we've had this conversation about who gets to work remotely and can people really effectively work, and managers saying, oh, we can't do this. People will just goof off if they're telecommuting, and I can't manage people if I can't walk around and see them working. And the massive answer during the pandemic has been, nope, it works. And in many cases, it makes a lot of people happier and more efficient. And they've discovered that it gives them better quality of life. And there are downsides. Some people don't prefer it. But it answered that question. Nobody was willing to do the experiment until we had to. Right. And I think that what we're seeing is museums are taking this data about what they did and didn't do and what they had to do during the pandemic and evaluating, well, can we stop doing that? Can we keep doing this? This is something that we might adapt for post-pandemic times because it was so successful. Just to name one, because it's such a large discussion and we'll get into more of it later, but one of the things that I wanted to mention in case people aren't following it is the Culture Track research, Culture and Community in a Time of Crisis. And I'm dropping a link into chat. I see Ed's a fan. And one of the really interesting findings they had was that when you survey people in the public to say what was happening to you during the pandemic, how did you feel, what did you do? One of the interesting findings was that for every kind of museum, looking at separately by natural history museums, art museums, science museums, history museums, an awful lot of the people using the digital resources weren't people who normally visit museums, which really questions a lot of our assumptions about who can enjoy our stuff, who sees themselves or could see themselves as museum people, or what does museum even mean to them? What are the resources that we were offering digitally that they could access and valued that they didn't or couldn't make the time to access in person?